with the upcoming release of Lightfall, our mods are about to be changed forever. With that knowledge, a lot of our current builds in the game aren't going to perform the way they are right now. So I wanted to start a series leading up to Lightfall where I make a build with every single class and subclass that we currently have in the game. These builds are not going to take advantage of any combat style mods and heavily focus on fragments, exotics, and aspects. Normally, if you use these builds with mods equipped, it is just the cherry on top. And of course, before you start doing anything in Lightfall, you can obviously take a look at the new mod system and try to insert what you think might work. This is just supposed to be a clean slate and give you all an idea of what is some of the strongest stuff in the game right now for each of the classes. If anything changes in the future, I will make an updated video talking about what I think could be better. And like I said, if you're interested in every single class and subclass, be sure to check out the channel and give the series a watch. So in this one, I want to start off with one of my favorites, and that is the Solar Warlock. The Solar Warlock has the potential to be one of the best, if not the best class in the entire game, especially when it comes to team play. It has great abilities, it has a great super, it has good exotics to pair with it, and overall it is just super easy to play into. So if we dive right into our subclass and take a look at our aspects, we have Icarus Dash, Touch of Flame, and Heat Rises. All three of these aspects are very strong, and Touch of Flame is pretty much the only mandatory one you need to take. So what Touch of Flame is going to do is buff your grenades in different types of ways. Mainly, we're going to be running a fusion grenade because this is not only very strong for act clear, but also extremely strong for single target damage. So with fusion grenade equipped and Touch of Flame equipped, that is going to make our fusion grenade explode twice. As you can imagine, this does put out a ton of damage. Again, the fusion grenade is all around doing a bunch of damage with one explosion. So add another one to that, and on top of it applying Scorch, it is a very, very strong option. Now, your other aspect, you could take Icarus Dash or Heat Rises. Heat Rises will get your melee energy back when you get kills in the air, alongside letting you float around. I mainly like to run Icarus Dash because this will let you dodge in the air. It's good for mobility, it's good for getting through jumping puzzles. It's also good for just dodging enemies' attacks if you need to get to cover really fast. And if you get kills while airborne, you do apply Cure to yourself, which is just a small little boost of healing. But again, Icarus Dash or Heat Rises, whichever one you prefer will be good. I just like the faster playstyle of Icarus Dash. Now for melee, you have Incinerator Snap and Celestial Fire. Celestial Fire is a great option, but honestly, I like to run Incinerator Snap. Incinerator Snap is basically going to make your melee into a shotgun-ish. It's going to fire out a bunch of little sparks that will scorch enemies every single time it hits them. Now you might have heard Scorch a couple times already in this video. If you don't know what Scorch is, it is going to be a dot or a damage over time when you hit an enemy with something that applies Scorch to that enemy. Once you have enough Scorch stacks, they will ignite, doing a load of damage and also blowing up everything else in its radius. It's kind of like a mini nuke in a way. So what Incinerator Snap has to offer is with each of the little sparks that fire out, it will ignite enemies. This melee to me is very underrated because what you can do is run up to a higher health target or just a big group of enemies. Incinerator Snap the ground, it's going to scorch everything, and everything will immediately ignite and just blow everything up. If it is on a boss, it also does a chunk of damage. That is something you can look out for as well. And overall, I think this is one of the stronger melees in the game that not a lot of people talk about, and I hope this helped explain that, and I hope that you all will give it a try. Now for super, Well of Radiance is the go-to option. It is very good for survivability. On top of that, it is also extremely strong for team play. You get that damage buff. It is pretty much the go-to super, the best super in the entire game. And it's a no-brainer that you're going to run this, especially over something like Daybreak. Now I'm going to be running an Empowering Rift because this is going to let me put down a well that I can do more damage. It does the same exact as Well of Radiance, just without the healing. But the main reason I'm going to be running Empowering Rift is because of my exotic, the Starfire Protocol. This has the exotic perk Fusion Harness. Fusion grenades have an additional charge and recharge from empowered weapon damage. Fusion grenade kills grant rift energy. So this exotic is very, very strong, and it honestly might receive a nerf by the time Lightfall does come out. But again, what this does is you have an additional fusion grenade when you do damage in an empowering, so aka a rift or a Well of Radiance, you will recharge your fusion grenade, and if your fusion grenade gets a kill, you will be granted rift energy. So the loop of that is to obviously do damage in empowering rift to get your grenade back. On top of that, when you get a grenade kill, you will then get your rift back, and it is a infinite supply of rifts and grenades. But now looking at our fragments to amplify this even more, Ember of Char, your Solar Ignition spread Scorch to affected targets. I like this a lot just because you can apply more Scorch stacks, which means they'll be easy to ignite if you do have other forms of Scorch applying to enemies. It is just a very strong act clear focus perk. On top of that, Ember of Eruption, so my Solar Ignitions have increased area of effects. This makes them even more into bigger nukes. They can act clear a lot better if enemies are around. Ember of Ashes, so I'll apply more Scorch stacks to target, so everything that applies Scorch will now just apply more stacks, which means it's faster to get to the ignition, which is the main part of this build. Then Ember of Syrian, so defeating defeating scorched targets grants melee energy. So now since we're scorching everything, we're going to be granted melee energy. So how is all this going to synergize? Well, the easiest one is Ember of Ashes. So you apply more scorch stacks. Your incinerator snap, your fusion grenade, and other stuff will get into the build later. Just apply more scorch stacks. With Ember of Ashes and fusion grenade with Touch of Flame, you will be applying enough scorch stacks with your fusion grenades if you are spamming them to constantly ignite enemies over and over again, which adds so much more single target damage. And if enemies around, obviously it'll be even better for ad clear. Now, Ember of Searing is going to give you melee energy when you defeat scorched targets. Since your melee scorches and your grenade scorches alongside other stuff again, you'll be getting a bunch of melee energy back, and this is going to let you have pretty much infinite rifts, grenades, and melees with this build pretty much all the time. Then solar ignitions have an increased area effect, just means the ad clear is going to be better with this build. And since my solar ignitions are going to spread scorch, with that increased area of effect, I'll be applying more scorch over the entire battlefield, which means everything else is going to make it even easier to ignite enemies. And the main point of this build is to spam all your abilities and try to ignite people as much as possible. Now, the stat distribution for this build I like to run is 100 resilience, 100 discipline, and 100 strength. If you want to run 100 recovery, you could do that as well. I like to run 100 strength because I really love to play into the incinerator snap melee ability, and this just makes it even easier so I can ignite more enemies because I'm applying scorch everywhere. But now, speaking of scorch, I would highly recommend running a weapon with Incandescent. Incandescent is going to play heavily into this build since match game is not going to be much of an issue with Lightfall. You can actually run what you want to run now. So when you defeat a target, it's going to spread a longer lasting scorch to those nearby. More powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause scorch in a larger radius. So the reason this is longer lasting because I do have an enhanced trait on here. But what this does when you get a kill, you just apply scorch around. Then obviously pairing that with your abilities and your fragments, you're going to be igniting enemies like crazy. Now, there are a lot of weapons that can get incandescent right now in the game. Callous Mini Tool probably being the most notable one. But if you want a longer range option, the Deep Stone Crypt Scout Rifle is a great option to pair with that. And I cannot wait to craft it because it is going to probably be my go-to with this build. Now, the other main gun for this build we need to talk about is Wither Horde. Wither Horde is extremely strong for this because when you shoot it on an enemy, it will apply a dot or damage over time again that will constantly do damage for around 4 seconds. You can also shoot this on the ground and get the same effect. It's a lot easier just to shoot it on a boss though, so you make sure it's always doing damage. And if you pair that with things like the Starfire Protocol, where when you're doing damage in a rift, you're going to recharge a fusion grenade, what you could do is actually shoot a Wither Horde, swap to another weapon, and now your Wither Horde is in the background constantly refilling your grenade without you having to actually shoot the gun that you're holding. This will allow you to pair heavy weapons with things like Demolitionist, so you can shoot a rocket, throw a grenade, shoot another rocket, and you can pretty much just spam heavy weapons like crazy. Obviously, we don't know what the meta is going to be once Lightfall launches, so I would recommend keeping pretty much just one of everything in your inventory. But with this build specifically, try to get Demolitionist on your heavy weapons because you will be able to spam much more heavy than literally any other class can do. Now, I do have a couple mods I want to go over, but to round everything up again really quick, all you're doing is spamming pretty much infinite grenades and rifts Starfire Protocol. You're going to be able to do a bunch of single target damage with all your scorch stacks. You have Well of Radiance for your team play. You have a bunch of at clear with all your fragments. You're going to have infinite melees alongside grenades and rifts because of things like Ember of Searing. You have a dodge tool, a movement tool to get out of situations if you need it. Your weapons also play heavily into the build with things like Spread and Scorch that let you play into your Starfire exotic a lot easier, and even Demolitionist being able to shoot out much more heavy than you normally could. Now, to amplify this build even more, like I said, we're not taking combat style mods since pretty much all of these are going to be getting changed, but our other mods shouldn't be getting changed too much other than the elemental affinity going away. But I like to run a harmonic siphon, so when I get rapid weapon final blows, I'll create an orb of power. The weapon does have to match my subclass type, so things like my Mighty Mini Tool will just make orbs now, which is going to play heavily into some of our other mods. I also like to throw on a Ashes to Assets, so I gain bonus super energy on grenade kills. Since I'm getting grenade kills 24/7 with Starfire Protocol, this means I will now be getting more super energy, so I can spam even more Well of Radiances. Now, I do also like to run an SMG loader. Obviously, I would change this out to whatever I am running for my primary weapon. If I run a Scout Rifle, I'll change it to Scout Rifle loader. Champion mods won't matter as much anymore since there are going to be so many ways to stun champions now. So that's why I'm also going to be running something like a momentum transfer. So causing damage with a grenade reduces your melee cooldown. Again, since I'm getting a bunch of grenade kills, now I'm going to get even more super energy on top of getting some extra melee cooldown, which means I can spam my melee even more as well. Now, I also am going to be running some resistant mods. Obviously, I will swap these out to whatever I need to, but I just threw these on just to, show the resistant mods off. And then I like to run a recuperation and an innervation. So recuperation will replenish some health when you pick up an orb of power. On top of that, innervation will give me some grenade energy every time you pick up an orb of power. Both of these are very strong, recuperation being the strongest because this means now when you pick up an orb, you'll get some health. And if you saw on my my Callus mini tool, I do like to run unrelenting, so this means when I get multi kills, I will also get a burst of healing alongside spawning that orb that will also heal me, and if I get kills in the air, I will also apply cure to myself, so you can have so many different ways of healing yourself, which is very, very good. And then finally, the last two mods are just 2 outreaches, so when I use my class ability, I will reduce my melee cooldown. So now my grenade will get melee cooldown, and my class ability will get melee cooldown. If you remember, grenades, rifts, spamming back and forth 24/7, which now also would just correlate to having infinite melee since you're doing it all the time anyway. But that is pretty much the build. Right now, currently, I think this is what I'm going to be running when Lightfall comes out. So if y'all like to get this set up on your character, I will have a dim link to this in the description below. Like I said, obviously all this is subject to change once we have more information about Lightfall, and you can expect an updated video. And if you want to see all my other videos going over every single class and subclass, just be sure to stick around, and I hope you all will enjoy them. But either way, I hope y'all enjoyed this one, and if you did and learned anything new, consider subscribing, drop a like, turns notifications on. Also, if you'd like to join my Discord or follow me on any of my socials, all that will be linked in the description below as well. But just know watching this video is way more than enough, and that every single bit of support from you all is truly appreciated. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and have a great day. Peace.